Hi, Jodi. Nice to meet you. It's so good to meet you. I'm Laura. Thanks for joining me today. And you're here on Boomx Beauty Beat, and I asked you to join me because you have a really important specialty. You do counseling, and your specialty is in, if I understand it correctly, addictions and helping families to recover from addictions. And you also work with individuals who have addictions, both the family and the individual. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. But I was reading so much about, you participated in a book, and that book is called, can you repeat the name of the book again for any viewers, Jodi, the name of the book?
Oh, goodness.
Is it W-O-W? Is it?
Oh, it's WOW.
Yeah.
It's the WOW book series. And I did the first book, and I have it right there, and it's upside down. It was 15 influential women.
Yeah.
Who got together, and we all just posted. We all wrote about our strengths, and like for my piece, it was just never give up. I'm tenacious. Wow. So, and we all parts of our stories, and it was a really incredible experience.
How did it come about? And I'm just super conversational, by the way, and very curious. So just don't mind me if I probe. So in terms of how that came about, it always fascinates me, like how these things happen. How did you get approached for something like that? To do the book?
Well, Christine Arworm, who is the creator of WOW, had this brainchild that she wanted to do a series of books written by women, or for anybody, really. And so she had made a post on Facebook, and then a girlfriend of mine saw it, and I love to write, and Catherine knew that, so she sent it to me, and it just kind of bloomed from there. And what's come out of it is like amazing. I went to Paris for a writer's retreat because of the book with the publisher Julie, and Influence Publishing. And then like it's started this whole community of other women that I'm now connected to, and started other business ventures, and we partner up and we support each other. And another friend of mine, Rebecca, just launched a children's book, so we all get on board and support. And it's like this whole other community that is amazing people.
Isn't that what life's all about, is just getting those really important connections so that you feel like, your life is rich and full and all of that. I read your portion in that book, and I bawled my eyes out. My mother's side of the family are alcoholics. I mean, most of them have passed already, but so I grew up with that. I liked my wine spritzers during my formative years, but I never really, I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but I mean, I definitely was surrounded, right? Like surrounded by it. And it is an animal on its own, that alcoholism, I'll tell you. And you described first taking a drink and kind of having this feeling like almost like you came home, like, oh, is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Maybe you could explain.
No, it feels like this. It's like, like my whole body just relaxed into itself, and my skin fit again. And I felt like I had just like the world was going to be okay now.
Yeah.
And I had never experienced that before, ever.
Wow. Can I ask how old you were when you felt that?
12.
You're 12, yeah. I think I had my first wine like around 13, yeah. And so it just kind of became something that you sought after, and it just kind of rolled along from there. If you want to explain a little bit about what you went through.
I was a weekend warrior for a couple of years, where I would like drink with my friends on the weekends and do our stuff and that kind of thing. And then I was drinking pretty much daily by the time I was 14. And it's funny, I went to a high school reunion, and a friend of mine was like, we never knew. And I was like, no, because my baseline was always buzzed. Like no one ever knew.
Yeah.
And because I could just kind of roam through the world kind of on my own and do my own thing, then it was easy. It was really easy. I'd always save some from the weekend before to last me for the week. And it was all quite measured and quite like, this is how I managed.
You were like a functioning drinker.
Oh yeah.
for sure.
And I
And
was never, until the weekends, I never got blasted till the weekends.
yeah.
And it
And when,
wasn't like I was drunk at school or anything. Like I was just like, take the edge off.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when did it start getting red flaggy and really out of control for you, or did it?
Oh, it did. I was probably 19, 20.
Okay.
And I started working in a bar. And of course,
Okay.
you know,
My mom and my aunt and I all worked at bars, so I totally
yeah.
relate. Yeah.
So, and I could pretty much do, I could drink at work. I drank everything out of a teapot or a
Yeah.
coffee cup. So no one really knew what was in it. And I could just, drink as much as I wanted at work, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, I was living with a boyfriend at the time, and we drank together, and it was a little crazy.
Yeah.
It was a little crazy.
Yeah.
So I was in Toronto, and then when I moved to Vancouver, of course, I was pretty much all on my own, which was fantastic for me because I could do whatever I wanted.
Mm.
And then I hit a bottom, and that was the end of that.
And how about your folks? How were they with all this?
My dad was kind of oblivious to most of it. My dad was an alcoholic as well, so he was kind of oblivious to most of it. He was doing his own thing. Yeah. And I hadn't lived with him for a while. And my mom, I think because she lived on the other side of the country at that point, she really didn't know how bad it was. Yeah. She knew I was a lot like my dad, but she didn't know how much she thought I was still functioning in the world. And I mean, bless her, she's my chief enabler. And like she was paying my rent and doing all sorts of stuff and having no idea what I was actually doing out here. Do
you think it's genetic at all? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I do on some level. I think part of it's genetic. I think part of it is what I learned.
Yeah.
Like I watched my dad cope with alcohol, not knowing there was any other way. I watched lots of things around that kind of stuff. I watched, dysfunctional relationships. I thought everybody's family functioned like mine. So, and because I didn't have parents that had good coping styles and good coping mechanisms, I just picked up what they did.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So then when was it like game over and I got to quit this? When did that happen?
I was 24 and I was working in a bar and I slept through, it was a restaurant and bar, and I slept through my shift in the morning, and I had never done that. I had always showed up for work no matter what. Hungover, drunk, didn't matter. I always showed up. I was always able to manage. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like I slept through my shift and I was still drunk and I went into work and my boss looked at me, he says, "We're going to have to suspend you." And I was like, nope, I quit. Because if I stay here, it's going to kill me. Right. I don't know whose voice that was. I don't know how that happened or anything. And I walked out to Granville Street and called my brother and was like, "Oh my God, what do I do now?" And he's like, you need to get it together and, start looking at 12-step programs. Right. Yeah. So I did.
And that seems to be like the one way people go is 12-step, right? Is that the gold standard, or do you think there's other ways? Because I get asked that sometimes, like, is it just AA? Is that the only way to do this, or are you pretty broad-minded about different ways to?
There's a million different ways to get sober, as there are people.
Yeah. Okay.
What works for one doesn't work for another. Yeah. And just because one person chooses 12-step or AA or NA or any of the A's, there's a whole bunch of them, right? Even the one person chooses that may not work for the next person. Right. There's so many different components to it, and some of it works for some people, some of it doesn't.
I think it's so important that we just mention that, because I think there are people who have even tried before and that didn't work for them, and they're just like, that didn't work, so where else am I supposed to go? There's no other place to go. So then they just continue on with it because they're just at a loss, kind of thing. But you have not had an easy time even after you stopped. You got married, right? You had two girls?
I have 2 girls. Yep.
2 girls. How old are they now?
They are 11 and 13.
Oh, they're just getting in those ages. Get ready.
It's what? I'm
bit of a
like the
ride
youngest
between
one.
13 and 15. My kids are grown now. They're 22 and 25. But that 13 to 15-year-old age it's something else. It's got some
Mhm.
harmonies in there. So yeah. But you had some physical things happen to you. Do you still have arthritis
Yep.
as well? Yes. And your
Yep.
hip, and some accidents has happened, and it affected your marriage and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yep.
I read your whole story. It was really good writing. It was
Oh,
unbelievable. If anybody, we've got to find the book and post it, because
I have a copy there if I can just reach and get it.
yeah, go grab it.
Mm.
Just because I think people should pick that up. It's such raw and real writing. Women of Worth. Wow. Yes. Okay. So you guys have to get that online, or you could buy
It
it.
is. You can get it on Amazon,
Yeah.
or you can email me and I can send you a copy.
Perfect. Yes,
Mhm.
it's an excellent read. So I guess I got a little sneak peek into your whole life story, a little more than most people can.
That's okay.
But so how did all that, do you want to talk about any of that and how that kind of played into you becoming a counselor and moving into this world of taking care of other people after you went through so much?
Well, I think my life has been just like this natural progression of one step, one step, one step, one step,
Yeah.
right? Like I started off my working career as a classroom assistant and worked with special needs kids and loved that. And then I got arthritis and couldn't do it anymore. So I started fostering. I was a foster parent for 15 years. And while I was fostering, realized I wanted to help the kids in more of a clinical kind of way. Like I just didn't have the skills to be able to support them the way a lot of them needed to be supported, because I had really high risk girls who I adore. And I didn't feel like I had the skills. So I went back to school after I had my kids. My youngest, Brooklyn, was 8 months old when I went back to school and did my counseling diploma. And it was started off more as a way to support my foster children.
Right.
And ended up that I realized I really loved working with families.
Mm.
Right. So through the fostering, I learned that I love working with families and loved being like the uniter kind of
Yeah.
feeling.
Do you
So, and
feel,
then,
sorry, go ahead. I
sorry, go
didn't
ahead.
mean to interject. I always wonder, like, when you had a past and you had difficulties in the past, and then those who do choose to go ahead and help later and become counselors and take on that role, do you feel like you're constantly healing yourself when you're helping and do you feel that's a sense of that at all, or not really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that I have to be doing my own work right alongside with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because they bring me stuff that triggers me I grew up with an alcoholic dad. So whenever another adult child of an alcoholic comes into my office, it's like, okay, I got to shore up a little bit, right? Because I relate so much. So I'm a firm believer that I have to be seeing my counselor on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and not only professionally and have supervision, but I also need to be doing my own work. I have to. If I'm not doing my own work, I just get stuck in their story.
Wow. I mean, yeah, and so you're constantly in the mix of it. You're thinking about it, you're working on it. I mean, that's a real life pattern choice to really stay there. It must have really so deeply affected you that you made it your life's work to help others. It's amazing. So when you started all this, was that pretty scary to start the business doing counseling at first? Was it when you first began?
I think it got scary when I finished fostering.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, now you're just going to counsel, right?
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't worried about my abilities. It was more about, all those other pieces that you don't think about that aren't really part of my passion, like marketing and all that stuff.
Right.
That's the part that scared me more than anything.
Yeah.
Right? So
it takes a lot of time and everything away from what you really want to be doing, which is the counseling part of it. And you also like to write, obviously. You have a blog.
yes.
I saw on your website, right? And
yes.
Now for you, you've got a good support system
Mm-hmm.
in your life now, right? So that is
Absolutely.
amazing, because you basically were a single parent for a while, no? Or sort of?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Their dad, the girl's dad's great.
Okay.
I mean, he's active in their lives, and we are really, bless him for leaving when he did, so we could stay friends.
Yeah.
Because we co-parent really, really well together.
Phew.
Like,
That's,
thank goodness, because my
yeah.
girls deserve that. My
Yeah,
girls
that's
deserve it.
excellent.
We're able to work things out, and he's great, so I don't feel like I'm in this all by myself.
Yeah.
Right? I have the girls the majority of the time just because of logistics,
Mm-hmm.
which is a time cruncher, but at the same time, he's always there to support. So, yeah.
Well, I called upon you and some other ladies because I just really felt, I'm running a YouTube channel that's beauty and lifestyle, and I really felt that this COVID thing, I mean, you could feel it in the building I'm in, you could feel it in the air. There's a real downturn of like mental stability in even people that I know, and I'm getting really worried. And I mean, it was bad in the beginning of this, but then when it turned again, it just starts to spiral, and it starts to feel like we're never coming out of this thing. What are we going to do? And the hope factor goes down, and of course addiction must be going way up. Yeah. So what's your take on the whole COVID situation, and what's happening, and how we're going to deal with all this? Need some wisdom here, Jodi. Need some help. Help us.
Well, I mean, realistically, it's hard. It's hard. I was speaking with someone this morning, and it's like everybody just feels kind of gross, and everybody feels just kind of down, and it's the holiday season is upon us, and no one's really feeling it. Yeah. And it's like, so how do you get there? You just do the best you can. You like things like we've organized for my family, we can't get together. So we're going to do Christmas dinner over Zoom.
Wow.
So we're still kind of all together, but we're not really, like, we can't touch each other, but we still get to see each other's faces. Yeah. Right. I still get to watch my nieces and nephews open their presents and that kind of thing.
That's a cute idea.
Yeah, like lots of phone conversations, lots of Zoom coffees. Like, if you can get on Zoom is free if you're going to do something under 40 minutes. Yeah. So if you can get on Zoom and like hook in with your girlfriends or hook in with your family, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, good. That's a good advice on Christmas Day. You know, the whole season itself has this feeling around it, and I don't know, well, you're in the same area as me, like we're in BC, so I don't know about the mask situation, but wearing masks, we have to wear masks everywhere now. Yeah. It's like there's nowhere that you can't that you don't have to wear it. It's not good for me because of the lipstick problem. I'm just
giving up.
Yeah. But back to COVID. So in the home itself, the tensions rising, and especially if there's addiction and there's things happening, what can a person do? Do they just, I mean, say you're the wife and your husband starts drinking more and things are getting more and more tense and fights are erupting, what do you suggest? Like, what to do when that kind of stuff arises?
The first thing is educate yourself.
Okay.
Find out what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
There's Gabor Mate has several really, really good books. There's lots of blogs out there. There's lots of really good information. The second thing is if you start feeling your blood pressure going up, engaging in a battle is not going to be worth it. Right. Get outside. Yeah. Even if it's pouring rain, grab your umbrella, go for a walk.
Yeah, I love Gabor Mate. He, if for those of you that don't know who he is, I don't know if you could just quickly explain who he is. He, he's a doctor, obviously, yeah. and he worked a lot in the Vancouver East Side. Is it the East Side?
Downtown East Side.
Yeah, but he's an amazing writer and speaker. Yeah,
he's kind of our resident expert, and he is a firm believer in that we. Don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Yeah. People who suffer from addiction are just numbing pain. It's just their coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. Right? Unfortunately, it's a coping mechanism that affects everybody they come into contact with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So then it becomes, okay, so then like you have one addict and then you have wife, parents, children, all these people are affected who then become addicted to that one person. And helping them, fixing them, changing them. And the piece that people don't understand often is that the addict it's not a choice. What they're doing is not a choice. It's about their survival. And it doesn't look like it is. It doesn't feel like it is. It feels like it's all a choice and behavior, and it's not. At the end of my drinking, I felt like if I didn't drink, I was going to die.
Yeah.
And it was really that simple. So
you're one of the few that talk like this, Jodi, in this arena. Most people don't talk like this. You definitely are taking on a little bit more of the Gabor Mate philosophy, which, thank goodness, because I think that's where the real healing will be, is in that thinking, in that philosophy. So that's fantastic. So when you're writing in your blog things like gaslighting and enabling, who are you directing that? What are you talking about there when you're talking about those terms? Like, what's gaslighting for starters? Because some people don't even know what that is.
So gaslighting is a manipulative behavior that people do when they want someone to side with them or believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I used to be an amazing gaslighter. I still can be if I let myself.
Yeah.
But I'm conscious of it now because I also have been on the receiving end.
Yeah.
So for someone who's on the receiving end of it, it's having that conversation with someone and knowing what you believe. And then all of a sudden by the end of the conversation, you're talking to something you don't want to be doing. You're agreeing with something you don't want to agree with. And you feel like you're a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel crazy.
What just happened?
Yeah, what just happened? You're right.
Yeah. So if you have any of those, you've just been gaslit.
And so if you say to the gaslighter, I know you're trying to gaslight me, is that going to do anything at all?
No.
Just
walk away.
Just walk away.
You can say something to the effect of like, I'm sorry, I can't have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
The words I use is I'm feeling really triggered right now and I need to not have this conversation. Can we come back to it?
Yeah. Is gaslighting fixable, or is it something people only if they really want to fix it, right?
Want to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, good people gaslight, or are they?
Everybody gaslights on some level.
Okay.
Especially like often people do it not even knowing if they're really passionate about something.
Yeah.
It can happen. And it's out of, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. I need to be right. Right? Often that's the feeling.
And just doing anything they can to manipulate that rightness, kind of. Yes. Gotcha.
Or get what they need.
Yeah.
Right?
And you
debating why I need that $100.
Right. And then now I'm moving on to the next blog post that you made. That's just amazing. If any of you are watching this, please go to Jodi's website, familiesdorecover.com, correct? Yeah. Read her blog. It's so wise. It's unbelievable. And then I read the part about enabling, and you mentioned your mother enabling.
Oh yeah.
Did you realize she was an enabler right off, or did that come later? Oh, you did.
I knew.
And so that was part of. You were able to like maneuver her a little bit? Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is enabling? What's an example of enabling for those people who are just a little confused?
So enabling is doing things for people that they can do for themselves or should be doing for themselves. Okay. Like my mom would pay my rent because I had just drank away all my money.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. She would pay my phone bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, well, if you don't pay my phone bill, then I can't call you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a phone, Mom.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, and that was like, I'm on the other side of the country. I'm 22 years old, 23 years old. And she's just like, that's not happening. Yeah. So she would pay my phone bill. Mom, I have no food. I have a fridge full of beer, but I have no food. She doesn't know that there's beer in there though.
Right.
I'm hungry, Mom. I'm hungry.
I think I think every Italian wife is an enabler because she's cooking and cleaning when things that people can pick up and do on their own. I find myself having to make boundaries because I'm a giver and an empath, an empathetic person, and it took till middle age for me to say ooh. And when it went red, when I saw red, that was that. Then it's now I'm really a little better on top of it. But that takes a lot of practice, and it's actually really uncomfortable for the person that's enabling to say no. It's so painful to say no, but you gotta.
Because on the other side of that uncomfortableness, freedom.
Freedom, hallelujah. And you've got to be not afraid of the consequences because you have to let it go, I suppose, right?
Yeah. And here's the other piece that people sometimes miss. You, as the family member, are not powerful enough to make your person drink or use. You are not powerful enough. Your behavior is not going to cause that.
Oh my gosh, people have to come and see you, Jodi. So can you tell me more about your services and what you offer and who should come and see you? What types of people should definitely would be, good candidates for your practice?
I work with a lot of families who have a loved one in treatment or early recovery, and also who are still practicing using, drinking. Okay. I work often with moms. Moms prefer to come rather than dads. Moms are more hooked in with their kids than dads are emotionally this way. They're just built differently. There's no right or wrong. It just is what it is. Right? Dads will come after the moms come. But I do an education group, which is 6 weeks long.
Okay.
And we learn all about setting boundaries, enabling, detaching, what it actually is they're dealing with around addiction and what it looks like. And what is manipulative behavior, and where do you draw the line between where you're helping and supporting recovery and where you're enabling and supporting addiction. So we go through all of that.
You must see people when they're in that group. You must see them making like these aha moments by the minute, because all these things they just did unconsciously, not realizing what they're doing. And boy, just to even understand it is a big deal. So is this online? Is it all online with
all online?
Okay.
It's all online. And then from that group, you can move into a support group.
Okay.
We do every week for an hour and a half, and we just share and, oh my God, this is going on, and my daughter's doing this and I don't know how to help. Oh, this parent over here handled that. What did you do? How did that work for you? Right? So they draw on each other's experience, strength, and hope, and what's worked for them and what hasn't, and they start to form a community.
Oh, that's great. So are they able to kind of connect and become friends, or is that allowed?
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I love it when I say, oh, Susie phoned Johnny about their children and didn't know, like Susie had a problem and knew that Johnny and his wife handled it. So they just called each other. I'm like, yes, that always makes me so happy.
That support is so important. So do you get like moms or whatever coming to you and just bringing their kid and saying, fix them, kind of? Yeah. And so where does that go from there?
I can't fix them unless they want help.
Yeah.
But there's a pre-treatment process. If they're not ready to get sober, there's always a process to that. And even just getting counseling and starting to open those doors for them. Okay. Right. I mean, I started counseling when I was 20 and didn't get sober till I was 24.
Right.
Right.
And sober can mean, it doesn't just mean alcohol, can mean anything from drugs to gambling to anything, or yes.
Shopping.
Okay.
I mean, my very, very, very first.
Did you say shopping?
Yes.
Well, add to cart. That's what people are doing right now. Add to cart. Amazon.
Yeah. I fill the Amazon cart, then I empty the Amazon cart.
Yeah. I've never even shopped on Amazon to the last 3 months. I'm like, this is really too easy. Like, it's really bad. Yeah.
It is. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. say? Oh, so like
You're thinking about shopping.
I am. I'm thinking about Christmas shopping. Um, so, so, I mean, my first addiction was food. My second addiction was reading.
Really?
Reading. And my
Wow.
parents were like, "Oh, she's great. She's in her room reading her book."
I have never heard reading before as an addiction.
I could disconnect if I read. I didn't have to feel what I was feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's about you have to get to feeling, if you don't feel it, then you can't get through it. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
So you've got to get to those really deep feelings. Yeah.
More than happy and angry.
So you not only are helping the addicted person, but you're also really supporting, and even if they're still addicted, still supporting the family members, like an Al-Anon would, but way more intense and way more involved and so forth. Are your services, is there any coverage? Is it affordable? How does that work? Do they just call you and then you give them a quote? Like, how does it work for if someone wants to pick up the phone right now and book you, what do they need to do? Or to keep in mind for?
We have what I call the meet and greet, and we figure out what's going to work for you and work on your budget.
Okay.
So I do several different programs, and some are more budget friendly than others. Okay. I mean, there's the Mac Daddy program where it's a year long, and it's counseling and groups and workshops and everything. And
I love that. Is it called Mac Daddy, or is that
that's what I call it?
You should call it that. That's so
Mac Daddy. And then I have groups that are $25 a week.
Oh wow! Okay.
Right. So it just depends on what works for you.
Like for everyone, there's something for everyone. Yeah. So there's no need to be sitting there confused and in pain, and you don't even have to tell the person who is addicted that you're going to see you. You could just have somebody call you and come in and, can you help me sort out what's happening and what is going on here and what am I doing? My gosh, you're going to get a lot of people calling.
I hope so, because yes, I need to feed my children and keep a roof over our head, but I'm not into gouging people. I'm just not down.
Yeah.
So we work together and figure it out.
And it's nice in a way that it's online, because you can, you don't have to worry about room space and things like that, right? So that's really good. I
gave up my office when COVID started because people weren't comfortable. We were too close, right? People weren't comfortable.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No more, only cyber hugs, no more real hugs anymore. Yeah.
That song, 4 Hugs a Day, it's like I'm lacking. Lacking.
I know it, and we have a need for that. Like, have you heard so far any statistics to what's been happening since COVID with addiction and how that's gone up or anything like that?
In Canada, addiction has increased by 25%.
Wow.
Overdoses are rising rapidly, and it's not, many people think it's still the fentanyl crisis, and that's part of it. But the bigger part of it is because of COVID, the drug supply is compromised. Mm-hmm. It's harder for the dealers to get their supply into the country. Mm-hmm. So they're cutting it with all sorts of toxic chemicals. Yeah. And that's what's hurting people more than anything right now, is the toxicity of the drugs. So it's like, don't use alone. I mean, I get that people still need to use, and I get that people still need to drink, but don't do it alone. Yeah. Have the Lifeguard app. There's an app where
I've never heard of that.
If they're going down, they can push the button and then they can get help.
It's called the Lifeguard app?
The Lifeguard app.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to
get your drugs tested downtown at the testing centers, at Insight and that kind of stuff. But, just be really careful. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer in harm reduction. I think a lot of people who started the harm reduction road end up clean and sober, and end up in recovery. It's a process for people.
Yeah. I'm completely with you on that. I know it's controversial to some, but I am so completely with you on harm reduction, and what they've done, the kind of trailblazing maneuvers they've done with some of the centers in East Vancouver and stuff like that I'm 1,000% behind it. And I don't care what comments I get from under the things for that, because, you know, especially you've seen it and you've seen what it does positively to take that approach. And so unless you're in the field, you don't know exactly how that all plays out and how that works. You've seen enough people to know that it does have success. So
I worked at a methadone harm reduction clinic, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Right?
Awesome.
If it's done properly,
yeah,
people have success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, final thing, do you have any last words or messages if someone's watching this and they're in pain, either they're using or they know someone who's using, do you have any last words, messages in this so that we can maybe put them over the edge to get them to take action or to not feel so alone?
Well, they don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that want to help and can help. And you just got to find the right one that fits for you and matches.
Yeah.
There's someone out there that's willing to help and willing to stick their neck out for somebody else. Always, 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 always.
Yeah.
If you're like, for parents particularly, everything you guys have done has been out of love for your child or your loved one. And don't negate that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no playbook, there's no rule book, there's no system to follow in any of this, because it's also individual. And just know that you're doing the best that you can do without a whole lot of tools.
Mm-hmm.
Best thing you can do is get some tools.
Yeah. So, you know, living in guilt and living in fear is not going to help anything, for sure.
It doesn't help you or them.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to live like that. That's the thing.
I mean,
you don't have to.
The thought that this little discussion could, you know, help anyone out there, you know, is what it's all about. And I just so hope that even if you're just feeling really bad or down, just contact Jodi at familiesdorecover.com, and I'll link everything below. And you guys can see what a down-to-earth person you're dealing with, and how much she knows and how much she can help. And there's no need to be suffering alone when you have someone like you out there. And I'm so grateful that you did this with me. And you know, all my makeup watchers are going to be like, wow, she's really taken a turn on different topics. But like I said, you know, when the world is doing this, we have to take things seriously and see where we can help. And I think now that I have a little bit of a platform, this is where my energy needs to go for now, especially during the holidays when things get real wacky. So yeah, I hope we get to connect again. Maybe we'll get in a women's group or something like that.
I would love that. And I just wanted to say thank you. And you are doing an amazing thing here. An absolutely amazing thing. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and to just, you know, have people just hear that they can do it differently.
Yeah.
You're a pretty amazing woman, Laura.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much. So bye. Thanks, Jodi. Thanks for joining me. Bye.
Great day.
You too.